Hey y'all, Rob here with ATX Legal, and today I'm going to talk about the tragedy that happened over the weekend at the Travis Scott Astrofest down in Houston, and talk about some of the implications of that, both on the criminal side and the civil side. If you don't know who Travis Scott is, he's a rapper. He's pretty big. He was at the Super Bowl. I think a lot of his music's a little auto-tuney for me, but some of it's pretty good, I guess. Over the weekend, he hosted a big festival called Astrofest, brought in a lot of big names in the hip-hop world, and while he was performing, the reports kind of vary, but it seems like between 8 and 11 people died, and there were a lot of injuries as the crowd just trampled on each other. So very tragic, very sad, some very awful video that comes out of that. I'm not going to play any of those clips here, but they are available on the internet. But anyway, there's definitely going to be some liability coming out of this, whether it's criminal or civil. I'll get into that. First of all, I'm going to get into criminal liability, and you can think of that as jail time. It's other things like probation, but as opposed to civil liability, where it's only going to be a money damages. It's not going to be any kind of punishment other than he's going to have to pay out money to the victims here. So with criminal, there's a few different things he could be charged with. And the first thing is disorderly conduct. Now, he's been arrested for disorderly conduct before. It's just a misdemeanor. But basically, if you say something that incites violence, or if you're encouraging violence, that can be treated as a misdemeanor. Now, in this country, we typically don't criminalize speech, and that's what this is. It's criminal speech. But it's distinguished because it does lead to violence. Now, there's previous video that's circulating right now of him telling one of the fans in the crowd, they're telling him to get him because he goes and crowd surfs and they steal his shoe.
Come here, bitch. Get that motherfucker, get him. You tried to take my shoe? You want to be a thief? Fuck him up, fuck him up. Fuck him up!
And that's definitely inciting violence. That's definitely disorderly conduct. And I'm not sure if that's one of the times that he was arrested, but I know he's been arrested twice and pled guilty once for disorderly conduct. But of course, we're looking at this and thinking, well, misdemeanor, that's not enough here. And there are a couple more serious charges that he could be facing. And that's probably what the Harris County, that's where Houston is in Harris County, that's probably what the Harris County prosecutors are looking at right now. So the first is going to be manslaughter, and the second is criminally negligent homicide. So both of these involve death when you didn't knowingly cause the homicide. Like he didn't go and stab those people, but maybe he created a situation where it made it likely for these people to die. And that's what the prosecutors are going to be looking at. So with every crime, there's two different types of elements. There's the mens rea, which is the state of mind, and the actus reus, which is the actual act that happened. The state of mind for either manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide has to be at least reckless for manslaughter and at least criminally negligent for criminally negligent homicide. Now, what does that mean? Reckless occurs when a person is aware of but consciously disregards substantial and unjustifiable risk that the circumstances exist or the result will occur. And criminally negligent is pretty much the same, except you're talking about where the person is not aware but should have been aware that these circumstances were occurring with the unjustifiable risk. And the definition goes on to say that the risk must be of such a nature and degree that its disregard constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of care that an ordinary person would exercise under all the circumstances viewed from the actor's standpoint. Now, at first glance, you might think that the elements are met here, because obviously the video, if you've seen it, it shows him performing while people are performing CPR. He doesn't stop his performance. There's a really horrific image of a lifeless body being crowd surfed out of the crowd, and he's continuing to sing. So at first glance, that seems beyond reckless. I think that, manslaughter is going to be easy. And if not, at least criminally negligent, where he should have known that this stuff was going on. But I'm going to put on my criminal defense hat for a second, and I'm going to explain why the prosecutors are probably unlikely to be successful on either of those. Certainly manslaughter, but probably criminally negligent homicide as well. So, and there's a couple of main factors. The first is we don't really know what he can see from his point of view. So the lights are on him and we see him, but the crowd itself is dark. So if he's looking out and he sees a big crowd of people, he might not be really aware of what's going on. Now, you might still argue that he should be aware of what's going on, but his shows are kind of always like this. He's very well known for sort of a rowdy crowd. He's not had anything really happen to this degree or this nature in the past. So you might say that this is just a normal part of his show. At least his criminal defense attorney would say that. And there's a second reason. There's reports going around that there was some drug overdoses, some spiked, even some crazy reports of people injecting people with drugs, and those people would pass out. So what I would argue as his defense attorney is that definitely creates reasonable doubt as to whether or not he was even the cause of these deaths. If someone else drugged someone in the crowd, Travis Scott's not responsible for that. Now, do I think that that actually happened? I don't know. These are just reports that have come out. But if I'm his defense attorney, I'm definitely bringing that up as reasonable doubt. And so it's a reason why, as a jury looking at that, to me, if those reports are even a little bit credible, that does create reasonable doubt to me that maybe these deaths were the result of drug overdoses. Now, that could change if there are autopsies and they don't turn up any drugs or anything like that. That could change my opinion. But for now, that does create reasonable doubt, and I don't think that the prosecution would be successful. Now, putting on my prosecutor's hat, I'm looking at the evidence here, and I think there's enough evidence certainly to charge him with manslaughter. There's probable cause to charge him with manslaughter, and I think he will be charged. I just don't know that they'll be ultimately successful because of those questions surrounding A, what did he actually know and what did he see from the crowd, and B, was there another reason for these deaths other than just the push of the crowd and the normal ebb and flow of the crowd. Now, if I'm a prosecutor, some of that video looks like he's looking directly at the stuff that's happening. And it did happen very close to the stage. So there is certainly some gray area there. And as a prosecutor, I would have no problem if the prosecutors bring charges here because I do think there's probable cause for it. I just have doubts as to whether or not there will be a final conviction here. Now, if he does get convicted of anything, I think it would be criminally negligent homicide because you could definitely make the argument that he should have known something was going on. He's very well known at his shows for telling people to break down barriers and rush the stage. And if he did that here, then that's gonna, I haven't seen video of him doing it in this concert, but he's well known for doing that. And if he did do that, then you can definitely make the case that he should have known that there would be problems if he's telling people to break through security barriers. So again, waiting for more facts to come out. I don't know if he did that for this particular show, but if he did, that would support criminally negligent homicide. So let's shift gears a little bit to the civil side. Now, I think on the civil side, he's fucked. He's going to be facing, so not only was he performing when it happened, but he also owned the production company that put on the show. So he's got liability from both ends. And it's going to be a mess of a lawsuit with very many claimants, might even be put into a class action. I don't know. But just for a little context, the Vegas shooting with the tragedy there with 60 deaths and something like 400 injuries settled for about $1 billion. This might not be that high, but it certainly will be very high. Now, this has a lot of implications. Obviously, Travis Scott's going to owe a lot of money. The production company is going to owe a lot of money, probably beyond their insurance. But it's also going to create a situation where he might be uninsurable, which means he won't be able to go perform anywhere because he's not going to be able to perform without insurance. So Travis Scott's career, at least his live performance career, might be over. We'll see if that changes, but for now, it's certainly looking likely. And why is he liable? Well, just look at the situation objectively. The show put on a performance where they knew there was going to be a lot of people crowded into a small space. They needed to have things put in place where they could stop the show, get medical attention to people, and that just didn't happen. The show continued for, I think 40 minutes after they were informed by police that there were people who were dying or at least injured or seeking medical attention. And the fact that they didn't stop the show, it's just unexcusable. I don't even know why. There's videos of people coming out from the crowd and letting them know that this was happening, and they didn't stop the show for 40 minutes. It's truly mind-boggling that happened. And that's on, I think, the performer for not stopping the show, but more it's on the production company and everybody that put on that concert. And they're definitely going to be facing, they already are facing many lawsuits. And I think that it'll be a mess that plays through the court over the next 2-3 years. And they're looking at hundreds of millions in that judgment, both individually to Travis Scott and for the production company. Now, I know many of you are probably thinking, disorderly conduct, he definitely deserves worse than that on the criminal side. I kind of agree with you. There's a lot there that shows that his personality and shows his character, both in this show and other shows, and we definitely want to punish that kind of behavior. But I'm just looking at the code, and as his attorney, I would bring up all these issues that cloud whether or not he really is responsible, whether or not he is the person responsible. And think about it this way: if he truly didn't know what was going on, do we really want to hold him responsible for manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide? If he's up there performing, I think it really does fall on the responsibility of the people running the show. They should have had something in place where they could let him know, tap his shoulder, stop the show, there's something going on, we need to stop this thing. I don't know that we really want to hold him responsible for these deaths, even if it seems like we should at first glance. Put yourself in his position and just imagine a situation where you really don't know what's going on. And in that case, I think you would agree that the criminally negligent homicide or the manslaughter is too far. And as far as punishments go, disorderly conduct is a misdemeanor, probably would be probation. State jail felony, which is criminally negligent homicide, is up to 2 years, state jail felony. And then the second degree felony, which would be the manslaughter charge, is 2 to 20. So definitely, the mob is going to be looking for that 20 years, the angry mob out there. Defense attorneys are going to say, hold on, not so fast. Let's look at what really happened. And if there's reasonable doubt, then he should be acquitted. And I think there is reasonable doubt here for everything except probably the disorderly conduct. Civil liability, again, though, he's looking at hundreds of millions and probably looking at, I don't know if this is the death of his career, but it certainly is not going to be easy for him over the next year or two as far as performing and doing anything with his career. Again, my name is Rob Chesnutt. I'm with atx.legal. This is not legal advice, just discussing recent news events. But if you do want legal advice on your particular case, you can always give me a call or visit atx.legal. And I look forward to talking to you.